Hello, this is going to be the first in a series of videos talking about the Linux terminal or the Linux shell. I'm going to sort of start by assuming you can at least get to a terminal or a shell. If you can't, well, if you just go through your menus, look for terminal or look for console with a K, depending on which distro you've got, should be able to find it. Okay. Now you might want to know what console you have got and which shell you're actually running, because there are different types. Okay, the most common one is bash, and if you want to find out which you've got, you can just enter that command there, and you can see out comes bash. Okay. Alright, so let's go through some basic commands. Probably the most basic is the cd command, which we'll probably talk about first, but before we do that, okay, I'm just going to enter pwd, which tells me the present working directory, and ls, which lists all the files and directories in the directory. So you can see I've got 3 directories and I've got a number of files there. Okay, so cd. How does cd work? If I type cd dot dot, it takes me up a directory. Okay, so you can see my present working directory is currently that. Well, actually, probably the most basic way, if you want to go into a directory, cd stands for change directory. If I want to go into a directory, I just type cd and the directory name. Okay, provided that directory is within the current directory, I will then go into that directory. Okay. Next, if you want to actually go up again, want to go back to where you currently were, up a directory, you use a double dot, and that takes you back, and you can see I've now gone back a directory. Okay, what about another useful one is the cd tilde, which takes me to my home directory. Type pwd, I'm now in my home directory. Now, one very useful thing is to use a wildcard. Alright, so if I want to go into the documents, I don't have to type out all documents. I'm going to go back to where I was before. I can just type in doc, and it will now take me into documents. I can then type in dev, which will now take me into dev. I can then type in li for Linux, which will take me into the directory for that, and I'm back where I was before. Now, one very important thing is, one thing you should understand, it's maybe not so important when you first start, but it's worth mentioning, is the difference between relative addressing and absolute addressing. Okay, so when you do relative addressing, you never start from the home directory. Okay, you just start, provided you type in the address of the directory you want to go to relative to the directory you're in. So you want to go into dir1, I would just type dir01, and I go to dir01. Now I can do it slightly more complicated way. If I want to go to dir02, well, I'd go back, but say I want to go back and I want to go then to dir02, you can do it in one go like that. And those are both examples of relative addressing. Alright, let's say, just so you can see, I'm in directory 02, pwd, and there I am. Alright, so let's say I want to do some absolute addressing now. I'm going to go into dir01. I'm going to take this, I'm going to copy it, okay, and then I'm going to put a backslash here, and I'm going to go dir01. That moves me into directory dir01. Okay. What makes it an absolute address there is the fact that I've started with a backslash. Sorry, a forward slash. Started with a forward slash. If you do that, you have to build up the full path right from your home directory to the actual directory. Okay. Otherwise, you're using relative addressing, and probably relative addressing, at least to begin with, is the most common anyway. Okay. So you specify the path to the directory you want to go to relative to the path you're actually in. Okay, so that's CD covered in to begin with. All right. The other common one, which we've used a couple of times anyway, is ls. Okay, let's go back a directory. As a basic use, you just type ls and you see all the directories and files. You can, if you want to, there's probably common options. Ls and options tend to be specified with a minus. So for this command, it has an option. You can use options. There's lots of them, and that's one, and it means all. Okay. And you get effectively a couple more directories. It basically displays the hidden files, and hidden files in Linux and Unix tend to start with a dot. So that's showing all the hidden files. Okay. Okay, good. So you get to see everything that's in the directory, and you can see that the current directory, which is actually just dot, okay, and the upper directory are also listed as well. Okay. Okay. Now the other one is ls-l, which stands for long, and gives you a lot more details. So you get the fact D here means it's a directory, These are all permissions. I'm going to pass on what the three thing means here. It might mean the number of files in there. This is the person who created it, the group, something like that. That's the size, that's the date it was created. Okay, and let's say I want to mix these things together. Alright, minus AL. Okay, so if you want to specify two options, you can always do it in that way. You can just do minus and then put the two together. That seems to be quite common throughout Linux commands, and you can see all the directories, the hidden ones as well now, directories and files. Okay, so that's all I'm going to say about ls. Okay, next thing we're going to look at is creating files and directories and then removing them. If you want to create a file, and you don't tend to do this too much, but either way, I'm going to tell you now. Touch file 05, that will create a file. So if I look in there, you can see on the file there'll be nothing in it. Okay, it just creates a blank file. If you want to create a directory, which is probably a more common thing to do, you can just do dir 04. That will then create a directory. Well, once you created them, you always want to remove them. Let's see if I want to remove the file 05 rmdir dir 04 ls, and you remove the file, you've removed the directory. Okay. The other way you can do, okay, common way to use that is create dir04 again. You can do rmdir, or you can do rm minus rdir04. They both do the same thing. They both remove the directory. Okay. So we've done creating files, we've done creating directories, and we've done removing them. You know, and it's very similar to how you'd use something like whatever Explorer you use for navigating through your files and directories anyway. You know, I've forgotten what the one on Windows is now, but it just goes up directories and you can copy things and paste things. So yeah, that's the next thing to talk about. Okay, we are going to do some copying and pasting. You did see a little bit of an example earlier on that you can always, and it's worth doing on the terminal, you can always use. So I type ls in now. If you want to, it's a bit of a, not the best example, but this is a big long directory. You could just copy and paste it if you wanted to. Just do edit, copy, edit, paste, and it puts it where you want. I think I've shown you that anyway, but just to reiterate. Okay, and that's useful, but we can also, of course, copy and paste directories much in the same way as you can in Windows, and you can move things. Okay, so I'm going to start by talking about the Linux move command, mv. And both the copy, which is CP, and the MV have this sort of source destination syntax and method of use in common. The first thing, or things you specify, are always sources, and the final one is a destination. Now if I want to copy a file, let's say, or move a file, I don't want file 04 anymore, I want to, it's effectively works like the rename, I want to rename file 04 file 04a. Okay. If I do that, then you can see I've no longer got file 04, it's been changed to file 04a. So it works very much like the rename functionality if you're on a Windows desktop. It doesn't really make sense to move multiple files to a file, so you wouldn't do that, but if you want to move multiple files to a directory, that does make sense, and that's something you can do. Let's just see what's in dir02, hopefully nothing, that's good. So let's say I'm going to move a couple of files into there, so I can now move as many files as I want. File 01, file 02, and you can have as many sources. Okay, that's these things that you type in first. It's always, when you look at a move or CP, it's always source then destination. So you can have as many sources as you want, and the destination is always a final thing, dir02. And then if we ls dir02, we'll see that we've got those two things in there. Let's go into that directory and say I want to move them back again, just to get a bit more practice. Well, why don't I try using a wildcard, as there's only two files and I specify write the whole name. Will that work? And yeah, it does work. Okay, so it's a bit neater. Okay, if you can, I'm sure you can follow what I've done there. That's the way you can use move. Okay, so we've looked at moving multiple files. Okay, the other thing you can do is move a directory into a directory. There's no problem with that. So let's say I want to move, I'm going to mkdir dir02a, and say I want to make that a subdirectory of dir02. Then I can do mv dir02a dir02 ls. Okay, should redo ls dir02, and you can see that it's moved that in there. Okay, it created the directory. Yeah, I probably shouldn't have done pwd a couple of steps up, but it created it in the one directory, and then I moved it into the one below it. Okay, so that's move covered, I think, for the most part. Now I'm going to look at CP. So there's a lot of things you can do with CP. Now CP is like copy. Okay, so and it works again similarly to how you'd expect it to if you're familiar with other things. Let's say I want to copy CP to file, so file O2A. I can copy one file to one file. This time it won't remove file O2, it'll still be there. Alright, so that moves it. Now you can't copy multiple files to a file, but you can copy it's just remove that to make things a bit cleaner. .ls. Let's see if you can copy multiple files to a directory. That's no problem. O1A. Let's say I'm going to dir02, and there you go. If I now list dir02, you'll see they're both in there. Good. You can copy. So you can copy multiple files to a directory. Yes, you can copy a directory to a directory. So I could copy, for example, cp dir01 to dir02. I think that should work. Oh no, you've done it again. dir02. Can I copy a directory to a directory? Why is that not working? Sorry, if you want to do that, what am I doing? You need to use the -r option, I should say. Alright. So it's going to copy. You use directories. Talking about directories, copy. You need to do this. So now if I list dir02, it'll have dir01 in there. Okay, sorry, my fault. Yeah. So you can copy directory file to a file. You can copy files to a directory. You can copy a directory to a directory. What happens if you want to copy from somewhere else to your current directory? Okay. Well, let's have a look. So let's say I go into dir02 ls, and then I'm going to make another file, touch file O1X, let's say, just for a bit of a difference. I go cd dot dot, cd dot dot, and then I'm back in my previous directory. I can go cp dir01 slash file O1X space dot. That's not worked. Oh, because I was in directory 2, I think, wasn't I? Yeah, okay, so let's change that. If I change it to directory O2, so my source is now this one, my destination is dot, which always means just the current directory. Okay, so I do that now, then I've got file OX1 is in there. So I copied a directory from that location, sorry, a file from a location into my current directory. So, and similarly you can do that with directories. Okay, let's say it's lsdir03, so there's an area in there we can already use. Let's say I'm going to copy test dir from that directory. Okay, I can do cp, and because it's a directory, it's going to be -r dir03 slash test dir dot. So it's going to copy from this directory to my current directory. Hit return. ls test dir is there. Let's just rm -r-te, oops, -f -r. Okay, and we're back. Well, close to as we were before. So that's how to copy files from somewhere else to your current directory. The other thing you can do is copy a directory, your current directory, to another directory. Now, what you can't do is copy it to a subdirectory. Alright, so you can't copy your current directory to a subdirectory. That doesn't really make a lot of sense because you're copying the, it doesn't make sense to do that if you think about it. So don't do that. Alright, but you can if we go into cd dir 03. Let's go cd. Let's remove rm minus r completely, dir 02, and then I'm going to make it again. Okay, dir. So it's basically just empty. All right. lsdir02, it's empty. So let's go cd dir, and you can see that I'm not mentioning it, but I'm actually using ls in a slightly different way to how I introduced it. If you put ls then the directory down, it lists the contents of that directory. Okay, which I hope you'd have seen by just looking at how things have worked here. So ls. So now I know that dir02 is empty. So let's say I want to copy everything in here to that. So I think cp minus r should do that. Cp minus r, my current directory. I want to go backwards to dir, or up, sorry, 02. So I should copy everything in my current directory into dir02. Well, let's also why not just for the sake of showing things a little bit differently. Let's list dir02 from here as well, and there it is. Just copied everything over. Okay, so that's probably most of the ways. I'm sure you can find some others, but most common ways you're going to want to use the copy command. Now a couple more things. Sort of throughout this tutorial, I've been scrolling up and down. Okay, you don't want to copy, retype commands all the time. So if you want to scroll on your previous command, you use the up arrow. On the previous two commands, use it again. You want to go back one, you use the down arrow. All right, so that's pretty straightforward. The other common thing, if you want to look up at what you've been doing, is to use the history command. That basically just lists all of the commands that you've typed in. Okay, so and if you want to repeat one, you don't say it's a big one. I mean here the commands are quite small, but they could be big. So let's just do something silly like, say I want to repeat this command here, which is just going to tell me my present working directory. I could do 2389. It tells me my present working directory. Okay. The other way you can use history is with history, is always searches through history this, and it searches for the first ls that it finds. It tells me it can't find that one, so it makes sense because it's the first ls there is dir02, and from where I am, well, dir02 is not a directory back, so it doesn't like that. Okay. What about if I do shriek hist? Well, I'll get the history again because the first command it finds with the hist in it is history. Okay, so that's the history and how you can use it. In later videos, I think I do a search through the history command, or I pipe the history command, which is also a very useful thing to be able to do if you've got a command that you kind of vaguely remember how to use, but you want a bit more help. Okay, now there's lots of ways you can get help in Linux. The easiest one, or the most straightforward, if you just want to know what something is, you can type what is ls. That'll tell you list directory contents. It doesn't really tell you a huge amount. If you want more information, there's two ways you can go. You can do info ls, okay, and that gives you a bit more detail. Okay, it gives you your options there. You see the option we had earlier on, the -a we looked at. Where was it? Oh, there it is. Okay, for all. Okay, and there'll be the L further down. And the other way you can get more information is man. This is probably the most common way, man, or it's the most traditional way anyway. I'm sure it's still the most common. And again, this gives you a bunch of options. So more detailed information, you're going to use man and info. Okay. There is also an online bash manual which you can get. Just type in online bash manual into Google and you'll see it. So I think that's most of the things I wanted to talk about covered. I'm just going to check if there's something I'm missing here, but that should certainly get you up and running with bash or whatever terminal you're using. Give you the basics. Okay, so I hope you find that useful.